Joining us now on the special broadcast, we have C. Holland Taylor, Special Advisor for International Affairs to the General Chairman of the Nahdlatul Ulama Central Board, and Sirajuddin Qureshi, President of the India Islamic Cultural Center. Mr. Qureshi, I want to start with you because when Sheikh Alisa was hosted by your center, along with the National Security Advisor, you said it's going to send out a strong message to the world. What kind of message are you hoping to send out?
See, number one, because both this great personality was here in the Islamic Culture Center. When the meeting started, the message was very clear by Sheikh Alisa that, in India, when he came, they had some other doubts and they were giving some wrong guidance and they were advised not to do all these things here. But, when he came here, he had a very big team of many people, his advisors, his supporters. And when he started, he was very convinced about the Indian systems, Indian constitution. He praised the Indian constitution. He praised that India is doing very well. Whatever people they say there is discrimination, there is this wrong, it is being minority is being targeted. He was very clear. See, India is the only place where 140 million people, there are 1.4 billion people, they are obeying the constitution very well, and there seems no discrimination. And the message has gone to entire world because 1.4 billion people, those who admired the Indian constitution, they admired the Indian system, they admired the Prime Minister's message. We all believe that whatever he was saying, small incidents, they are always there in every government, but majority of Muslims, I tell you, are about 25 crore people, they are with the government and they always try to be with the government also. People, they are spreading wrong impressions about the community. And if you see, Ajit Dawal Sahab, he also spoke very well. He said the religion in Islam is the best religion, and he said we are very happy that this religion is doing very well in India. So this was a clear message of both the leaders here, they came here. And Isa Sahab also spoke that he wants that there should be peace.
Okay. All right. So it's a message of peace, message of peace and the rights of minorities in India. That's the message you wanted to send out. However, despite that, Mr. Taylor, repeatedly there is this refrain, especially when the Prime Minister is on foreign soil. It's happened again, despite the fact that he has reached out domestically, internationally to the Muslim world. What would be your independent assessment of India's record, especially in the last 9 years, vis-a-vis minorities?
From my perspective, one should not look at this simply from the terms of the past 9 years, but since independence, since the British rule, since more than 1,000 years, because we live in a world where people have long cultural and historical memories. And there's no doubt that India, I'm just speaking very frankly as the advisor to the chairman of the world's largest Muslim organization, India's had a difficult history. And there's been a lot of trauma with colonialism, with invasion and wars. And so I think we have to look at all of this from a historical perspective. The chairman of Nahdlatul Ulama, Qiyai Haji Yahya Khalil Stakuf, always says that every ethnic group, every religious group in the world has grounds for resentment towards other groups. This is just the nature of human history. There's no part of the world that is not plagued by this kind of history. What we have to do is move forward into the future, finding ways to coexist. And we're optimistic that India is on that path.
Also, we are talking at a time when the Prime Minister, after his 2-day visit to France, is going to be in the UAE. How do you see his engagement, especially with the Islamic world, whether it be the UAE, whether it be Indonesia, with Bangladesh, with Maldives, and even with Palestine?
Well, looking from an Indian perspective, you have Islam to the west, you have Islam within India, and you have Islam to the east. Nahdlatul Ulama, particularly since it's rooted in Javanese civilization and culture, which has a conscious connection to a pre-existing Indianized civilizational sphere. The region where we are from, I'm in Medina right now, near the Prophet's Mosque, just performed Friday prayer here in Saudi Arabia. We can see a lot of changes that are occurring, beneficial changes occurring in Saudi Arabia. But then if we look at the historical origins of Islam within the Indonesian archipelago, it has a deep connection to Indian civilization. And this is something that came out last year in the G20 Religion Forum, which was a main event of the Indonesian presidency of the G20 last year. We had very prominent leaders from India, a Muslim, Roman Catholic, and a number of prominent Hindu leaders. And some of our Hindu friends refer to Nahdlatul Ulama and the Islam in Indonesia as the humanitarian Islam of the East, because we've had an easier history here than what is characterized the history of Islam in certain other parts of the world. But I certainly think that if you look to the East, there's a possibility for cooperation and communication between both Hindus, Muslims, and other minorities in India with Nahdlatul Ulama. If you look to the West, I think there's very positive signs for economic cooperation, and then also the positive changes that are occurring in Saudi Arabia as Saudi Arabia moves beyond Wahhabism into a post-Wahhabi future.
What's also important is at the Center for Shared Civilizational Values, you have constantly tried to engage with people to project a more reformist face of Islam and spoken very stridently against radicalization. Do you think, in a sense, that also echoes the kind of philosophy that India is trying to project, especially the current Prime Minister? Because repeatedly he's also said it's not about a community. We need to fight together with countries like Bangladesh and Maldives, for example, against radicalism. So the community and communalism and radicalism should be separated.
Yeah, we agree with this 100%. The Nahdlatul Ulama is a religious nationalist organization. It represents over 40% of the population of Indonesia. Indonesia is the world's largest Muslim majority nation and democracy, but the Nahdlatul Ulama is what we could call, has a beneficent religious nationalism. And we certainly feel that it's important, whether one is a Muslim or a non-Muslim, to be loyal to the state. And it's very important because the tenets of classical Islamic orthodoxy, particularly what are known as fiqh, classical Islamic law, and the law of governance, fiqh siyasa, these emerged 1,000 years ago and more in the context of the Middle East, where Muslim polities existed in a state of permanent conflict with non-Muslim neighbors. And so it is very necessary in today's world